Boys and girls, Angelinos, all, welcome to the regular meeting of the Los Angeles City Council's Planning and Land Use Management Committee. My name is Marquise Harris Dawson. I'm the chair of this committee. We're joined by members Karen Price, Gil Cedillo, Bob Blumenfield. There are 4 of us present, 1 absent. We'll begin our regular business. I know a number of folks are here on item number 9, and we have some information from the council office, so I'll invite them to the podium to appraise us of their disposition.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. Len Nguyen, Senior Planning Deputy, Councilmember Mike Bonin, here today on his behalf to request a continuance on the item.
All right.
Thank you.
So you're requesting that that item be continued. There won't be any public comment if we
No.
adopt your recommendation, and we'll come back. Do you want to continue for a certain amount of time or to be determined?
To be determined.
All right. So, Mr. Mejia will move that we continue item number 9. Without objection, that'll be the order. We have 2 other items. So everybody here that was here for number 9, we're continuing it. We're going to hear it on another day, not today. So you don't have to stay, although we love to have you here should you choose to stay. Other than that, we'll ask everybody to refrain from disrupting the meeting. We'll begin this meeting as we begin all meetings with folks who have signed up for multiple items to do public speaking. If you signed up for more than 1 item, we give you a total of 2 minutes, 1 minute on a specific item, and then 1 minute on any topic under the purview of this committee. We have 2 people in that category. One of them is Lydia Ponce, and Arnold Sachs, for 2 minutes each. 120 seconds.
120. God, you can really count them. You must have gone to Western World. Let's start here. We have a couple of things. A CEQA on a couple of different items. I think you ought to do CEQA before you tear down any apartment buildings. That's when CEQA needs to be done. It's on the existing building, not on the new construction. Because when you tear down the old building, it's been sitting around in LA for 30, 40 years or 50 years, collecting all that crap that's floating around in the air. And when they tear it down, all that crap goes floating back into the air, and you all get to breathe it again. So they do a CEQA after the project when it's all new. But that doesn't matter. All the crap is already in the air, and you're sucking it down by the gallon. You have a CUP on one of these items. A conditional use permit is like a blank check. It doesn't have to be used. It can be used for any other project. It just holds up construction on that project so that for whatever. But you can go to the bank and say, I have a conditional use permit to build some crap over here, but I want to buy that property over there. Sure, you got a conditional use permit. We'll give you the money to buy that property over there. But what about the building over here? Who gives a rat's ass? That's what's happening in the Grand Avenue project. Oh, by the way, the Grand Avenue project just received $250 million in MICLA funding, which was originally going to be $250 million in Triple H funding for the Grand Avenue project that's going right here for the low-income housing that's going to be provided by the Grand Avenue project. Sign up now if you want low-income housing in the Grand Avenue project. Oh, and by the way, the zoning laws and the rules that you guys were going to jump into, according to Mayor Spaghetti, that was a topic of the real last election. How far along are you on that? 120 seconds, sir.
Lydia Ponce.
Good afternoon, Lydia Ponce.
That's an ethnic slur. Sorry.
Mayo, Tongva, and Quechua. I'm here, I'm adopted Tongva, by the way. I'm here this afternoon to tell you that our neighborhood council is nothing but a circus because it is in total conflict of an interest of any of our neighborhood, of any of our neighbors. On my street, approximately 60% are Airbnb. And, you know, I really came a great distance to speak to you all and really take it to heart that forget the part that's gone and missing, it continues. If you were to come to my house for a cup of tea, on my porch, and we were to talk and visit, there were 9 original, just total deconstruction and new construction. Not only do they leave the nails for the tires and the noise and the deliveries, everything around me is noise and nothing but a bunch of, you know, male workers without the proper equipment to protect them from, as OSHA would find a lot of different violations. Getting back to the neighborhood council, the conflict of interest is simply this. The biddings and everything and everyone that sits on LUPC has contractually to not have a conflict of interest. They're developers, realtors, and or construction people. They have these investments to flip these homes and ill-gotten gains. Now I'm looking forward to the day when the frontline communities of the beaches, the oceans rise and make everybody human and care again, because it's going to take an act of God. When Earth Mother shakes her shawl and the waters rise, it's going to be a day, an epic day, when we actually have to get to know the people that remain and live in Venice. The conflict of interest is this. We have elections coming up, and all it's going to be is a circus. So it's the Venice Neighborhood Circus, not a council.
Thank you so much. That concludes our general public comment. We don't have your name, so when I get to you, I'll call you.
Sir, I've
at
traveled
that time.
downtown and our item
When I
is...
get to you, I'm going to call you. Until then, we'll ask you to keep your seat. Mr. Mejia, if we can begin the meeting by reading items number 2 and 5.
Item 2, Councilman, this is a report from the South Valley APC. This is a draft ordinance for a zone change for a 13-unit apartment building located in CD 6. And item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission. It's relative to the inclusion of the ACFA Ansco Corporation building as a historic cultural monument located in CD 13.
All right, so I need to see the public comment speakers on number 5. We can ask staff to come forward and make their reports.
Hi, good afternoon. Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. The AGFA Ansco building is a one-story commercial building in Hollywood from 1937 on Santa Monica Boulevard. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation was that the property met 2 of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. First, as an excellent example of a 1930s industrial building in the entertainment support industry area of Hollywood, and second, for its architecture as an excellent example of Art Deco industrial architecture in Hollywood. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. If there are no questions or discussions from members, there are no public comment speakers on these items. So we can take those items on consent.
Yes, Councilman, and can you take them individually?
Okay,
Yes.
we'll do that. Item number 2.
So item 2 was the zone change, Councilman. I read it into the record for a 13-unit apartment building located in CD6.
All right, so we'll take that item on consent if there's no discussion or objection. Hearing none, that'll be the order.
And item 5, Councilman, was the report that just read into the record, the report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the AFCA Ansco Corporation building as a historic cultural monument.
Okay. Excellent. If there's no objection or discussion, we'll take that item on consent as well.
Okay.
I have item number 7. There's been a request to continue that till May 28, 2019. Without objection, that'll be the order.
Okay.
Item 7. Now, item number 3. Item number 3, there's also a request to continue that till June 18, 2019. Without objection, that'll be the order. That brings us to our Director of Planning oral status to the report to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Harris-Dawson and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Vince Bertoni, Director of Planning. Just a few things. We're continuing our ongoing Planning 101 series. This is where we go and we go and educate the public on different issues regarding city planning. This season's is regarding environmental issues and environmental planning. So we had our first one last Thursday at LA City College, and that was very successful. We are going to be having our second meeting in South LA. We had it last night in South Los Angeles, the DWP Crenshaw Customer Service Center, and our third one will be in South Valley, Canoga Park Senior Citizens Center tonight. Just the other issue that I'd like to just raise is our City Planning Commission will be hearing on their agenda this week an item to amend our ordinance regarding the city's homeless shelters. It's just that some technical amendments to align it more with state law, and so that will be coming to the City Planning Commission this week and will be coming to the this committee shortly after that. With that, it concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Questions or comments, members? All right. Hearing none, we'll continue the director's report until our next meeting and move to item number 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a communication for the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Rudy Espinoza to the East LA Area Planning Commission.
All right. If the inimitable Mr. Espinoza is in the house, we'd ask him to come to the podium and give account for himself.
What do you want to know, sir?
Please introduce yourself and let us know why this is a way in which you believe you can be helpful to the 4 million residents of the great city of Los Angeles.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Rudy Espinoza. My day job, I serve as the executive director of a community development nonprofit here in Los Angeles that works on policy efforts and also economic development initiatives. A lot of our work focuses on supporting micro businesses in Los Angeles. We have a microloan program that provides low-interest capital and coaching to micro entrepreneurs in low-income neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And I start with that because my career is committed to supporting low-income communities, especially Black and brown communities in the city of Los Angeles. I'm really passionate about working with community members and making sure that they have access to buildings like this one and that they have access to all the great departments we have in the city. And I'm an urban planner by training. I studied urban planning at UCLA, and I love cities, and I love building community and all the different elements that make up a community, and I'm looking forward to working with the planning department in this great city to make it a better place, a better institution that serves Angelinos here.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments, members? Mr. Cedillo, Mr. Price.
No, just want to say thank you for your willingness to step up to the plate. You're no stranger to involvement and activism, and I know that you will make a great contribution to this planning body, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Price. Mr. Cedillo.
Let me echo Mr. Price's sentiments. I appreciate the mayor's recommendation. I think it's important, as Mr. Price was indicating, that those who are engaged in activism understand the challenges of governance, and it takes a lot of courage to come forward and to think about solutions, not just challenges and problems that the city has, but actually how do we get to from the problems that we have to the solutions, and what's the steps that get us there. And so it takes a lot of courage to be willing to do that. So we appreciative that you're from Council District 1, because that is a community in change. It's a community right now that reflects much of the country of where it is, and we hope where it's going. And so we welcome you to the commission.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cedillo. I would just add my comments. It's been a joy to watch you in both your activism and your role as a commissioner on the Transportation Commission, and we're excited that the mayor's put you forward for this commission. I know the department is very, very excited, and as well as the other commissioners and those of us on the council. LA faces big questions, as you know, and we are at what I would describe as a crossroads where we have to choose between the past and the future. And I've really appreciated your insistence on making sure we think about a future that includes everybody, and includes everybody with a good quality of life, and that everybody enjoys in the prosperity that we are able to build here in the city of Los Angeles. So thank you very much. Without objection, we'll send this to the full council for recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, this takes us to item number 6.
Councilman, item 6 is a report from the North Valley APC. This is a vesting zone change for a new automatic car wash located in CD 7.
All right, we have a report from Department of Planning.
Yes. Good morning, council members. Laura Frazen-Steele, City Planning. The proposed project is for a vesting zone change from TQ-C2-1 Kugu, from permanent T's and Q's to temporary T's and Q's, to construct a new 2,938 square foot car wash. The planning department feels this would be a benefit to the community. As part of constructing the car wash, a convenience market will be removed from the project site. The car wash is in need of repair, and it will provide state-of-the-art equipment with water-saving devices. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a representative from Council District 7, Mr. Quintana.
Good afternoon, Humberto Quintana, Planning Director with the Office of Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez. I'm here to express the Office's support of this project. However, we would like to make a modification to one of the T conditions relative to the dimensions of the sidewalk easement along Foothill Boulevard. I have submitted the language to the clerk in which I'm requesting a modified T condition 1A under dedication required for Foothill Boulevard to read as followed. Foothill Boulevard Avenue 1, a 2-foot wide sidewalk easement to allow the construction of a 12-foot concrete sidewalk. The Planning Department is aware of the revised T Condition 1A and has no objections. Additionally, I would like to request that the Planning Department submit the revised T conditions and a revised site plan reflecting these modifications to the clerk to be uploaded to the council file. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That concludes our public comment speakers on this matter. Mr. Mejia, can you read to us the recommendation before us as amended by?
The action, Councilman, is to approve it as amended with a revised T condition as to T condition number 1.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move that we adopt this item. Seconded by Mr. Cedillo. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. That takes us to item number 8.
Yes, Councilman. Item 8 is a report from the City Planning Commission. It also contains an appeal. It's a CEQA appeal relative to the proposed project, which is a 28 multifamily dwelling unit located in Council District 10.
Thank you. We have a report from the Department of Planning. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Joanne Lim with the Planning Department. The project before you is an appeal of a CEQA determination for a 5-story, 28-unit multifamily development with 3 units set aside for extremely low-income households in the Wilshire Community Plan area. On July 18, 2018, the Director of Planning issued a determination that approved a TOC project and determined that the project was exempt from CEQA under a Class 32 categorical exemption. The action of the Director of Planning was appealed to the City Planning Commission, with many points of which are the same appeal points presented to you today. On October 25, 2018, the CPC denied the appeal and sustained the determination and the associated Class 32 categorical exemption. On November 21, 2018, an appeal of the Class 32 categorical exemption determination was filed by the Pickfair Residents for Responsible Development. The appellants contend that the project is not eligible for a Class 32. The May 2nd, 2019 memo from Planning provides a more detailed response to the appellants. However, I will touch on each of the appellants' primary appeal comments briefly. The first being, a few of the appeal points relate to the project's consistency with the general plan and zoning. As part of the CPC action, the project was found to be consistent with the general plan, the Los Angeles Municipal Code, and the TOC guidelines. The appellants also contend that the project will result in a number of impacts to noise, aesthetics, and traffic. With regard to noise, the project will comply with the noise ordinance, which includes implementation of regulatory compliance measures to the extent feasible to maintain noise levels to be less than 75 dBA, resulting in less than significant impacts. In regards to aesthetics, the project is located within a transit priority area. Therefore, pursuant to Senate Bill 743, which precludes local agencies from finding that a project will result in aesthetic impacts, including that of shade and shadow impacts, the project will not result in significant impacts as it relates to aesthetics. In regards to traffic, the Department of Transportation has determined that a traffic study would not be required due to the number of units the project is proposing. Therefore, has been determined with the guidance of the Department of Transportation that no significant impact would occur. The appellants also contend that the project would result in cumulative impacts. The appellants list 25 projects, one of which is a subject project, in the vicinity that should be considered for cumulative analysis. Consideration of cumulative analysis is not performed or done in such a broad stroke and is more nuanced and tailored to each specific impact category. For example, the Department of Transportation utilizes a half-mile radius for a project of this size in considering cumulative impacts relating to traffic. For air quality cumulative analysis, a varying 500 to 1,000 foot radius would apply. And noise cumulative analysis is even more nuanced, given how noise is affected by certain features in the built environment. As such, based on this understanding, using the appellant's radius for related projects, which ranges from approximately 50 feet to 5,500 feet, close to a mile, in determining cumulative impacts would be inappropriate. Therefore, given the evidence in the record, the project will not have any significant cumulative impacts. Finally, the appellant contends that the project may result in a significant effect due to unusual circumstances. However, the project is located in a typical residential neighborhood within the city of Los Angeles, with no unusual features or distinctive character that would result in the project having significant impact due to unusual circumstances. In conclusion, staff recommends that the committee deny the appeal and sustain the determination that the Class 32 categorical exemption is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a representative for the appellant, Jamie Hall.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hall. I'm a land use and environmental attorney with Channel Law Group. I'm here representing Pick4 Neighbors for Responsible Development. I'd like to focus on just a few things that demonstrate that this project is not exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. First, I think it's important to observe that in order for a Class 32 urban infill exemption to be applicable, a project must, and I'm quoting here, be consistent with the applicable general plan designation and all applicable general plan policies, as well as with the applicable zoning designation and regulations. So you have to fit perfectly into this little box and be perfectly consistent with all general plan and zoning regulations. On its face, the project does not meet this requirement. The area is subject to urban design standards in Ordinance 179884. This ordinance also contains a Q condition, which limits the height of any development to 33 feet. So this particular ordinance was developed for this particular neighborhood, and it actually refers to it, the ordinance as, quote, urban design standards. The standards require, among other things, special landscaping requirements, limitations on rooftop structures, balcony regulations, and a requirement that projects be architecturally designed in a manner that preserves neighborhood character. This is in the ordinance itself. Moreover, the ordinance states that architectural design elements of the front and elevations of buildings shall draw from design elements found in prevailing architectural styles in the area. Now, planning staff is arguing here, and this is actually a case of first impression, so don't just think that this isn't an important case. Planning staff is arguing that the conditions like these are overridden under Measure JJJ. That's simply not the case. The TOC guidelines make it abundantly clear that TOC projects, quote, shall be subject to any applicable design guidelines, including any community plan design guidelines, specific plan design guidelines, and or citywide design guidelines, and may be subject to conditions to meet design performance. So if you have design guidelines in your area, that is not trumped by Measure JJJ according to TOC guidelines. And the city's own records unambiguously state that this particular ordinance with a Q condition contains, quote, urban design standards. There's an acknowledgement that that is a design guideline. Here, the applicant has proposed an extremely modern building, and that's not at all in keeping with the, quote, prevailing architectural style in the area. Moreover, the applicant has not landscaped the project in conformance with the ordinance, which requires a rear yard setback to be, quote, landscaped as a greenbelt area with a maximum of 20% hardscape. The ordinance states that this is required in order to, quote, minimize views across property lines. The applicant has not adhered to the design guidelines adopted by the city in 2008 for this particular area, and therefore the project is not perfectly in alignment with all applicable zoning regulations. And this means the project is not exempt from CEQA as a Class 32 project. Finally, for the record, we'd like to reiterate our position that Measure JJJ does not specifically preempt all Q conditions, and each of you have Q conditions in your neighborhoods. It does not preempt all Q conditions, especially when they contain urban design guidelines. Not all Q conditions are the same. Further, contrary to what is stated in the staff report, the City Planning Commission's decision on the land use issues in this case are not final. The legislature authorized appeals such as this under the Public Resources Code, and this particular categorical exemption requires you, as the elected decision-making body, to determine whether or not the project is consistent with all applicable general plan policies and zoning regulations. It is not. All of the impacts that the Q conditions were designed to prevent, as expressed in the legislative findings from 2008, are reasonably foreseeable and must be analyzed. Additionally, with regard to noise, actually I'm going to skip that and just go to the bottom. I'd like you to know that my client has met with the developer, his expediter, his architect, and his attorneys on multiple occasions at Councilman Weffen's field office and at City Hall in an attempt to reach settlement on this. My client is not opposed to a development of an apartment building. Rather, they wanted additional landscaping in the rear. They want to screen the properties from the adjacent single-family residences. They wanted supplemental construction mitigation measures, such as a specialized dust fence. And they wanted the top portion of the building set back from the rear, which is right next to the single-family residences. The developer has abandoned all efforts to try to reach compromise with us. This is not a situation where it's NIMBYs trying to kill a project. This is residents that are trying to uphold Q conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have the applicant, Fred Larian, or a representative.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ernest Guadiana. I'm an attorney at Elkins Cult, and I represent Focus Line LLC, the applicant of this project. Now, through this CEQA appeal, this committee must decide only whether the project is exempt from CEQA. Now, the appellants are attempting to conflate this CEQA appeal with all prior appeal points that were heard and denied by the Planning Commission. However, I reiterate the only issue before this committee is whether or not the project qualifies for a Class 32 infill exemption. Now, as explained in the staff report, every issue presented by appellants is meritless. The appellants provide no actual evidence to contradict the prior findings of the Planning Commission or show that the project will result in significant effects related to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. Now, in reality, this CEQA appeal is a disguised attack on Measure JJJ and the TOC. Now, we understand that Measure JJJ and the TOC will transform the density of certain communities throughout Los Angeles, like Pickfair Village. However, the voters approved Measure JJJ in direct response to the severe housing shortage that exists in Los Angeles, and the city enacted the carefully crafted TOC guidelines to implement Measure JJJ so that the desperately needed housing could be added throughout the city. Now, by granting the appeal, if the committee grants this appeal, the committee will be sending a message to all communities that the city doesn't take Measure JJJ or the TOC seriously, and that in opposition to a TOC project will regularly be granted so long as the community unites against it. Now, this is not what the voters wanted or expected when they approved Measure JJJ. As a result, we request the committee deny the appeal and allow the project to proceed to construction so that vital housing can be added to the city. Now, Fred Larian is also here he is the developer, and he's going to give his thoughts.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Addressing one comment that the appellant's attorney made, we propose to pay for landscaping to plant large trees in the back of our property or the back of their properties at our expense, and that offer is still there. We've made some changes based on discussions we've had with them. We've met with them. We made some changes. They didn't like all the changes. They wanted more. They wanted us, at one stage, they wanted us to lose the the fifth floor, and set back the fourth floor. Well, that's saying the TOC doesn't exist. The TOC was enacted by the voters for a reason, and we followed it. And as we followed it, and the planning commission, the planning department has determined that we followed it. We should not be penalized for following the law. Sorry, I'm just trying to skip some of the comments that our counsel made. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of public comment speakers on this matter. Following the public comment speakers, we'll ask the planning department to respond to the issues that have been raised, and so each speaker will be given 1 minute to speak. And you can come up as I call your name. Ernest Gualdiana, Julian Quattlebaum. If you already spoke, all right. Julian Quattlebaum, Joe Power. So you're passing? Okay. Okay, got it. Perfect, thank you. Jeff Masad, Tanya Masad, Lawrence Brahman, Anthony Fox.
I'm one of the neighbors who lives behind where this proposed development is going. And I want to state that we are not anti-development, we're pro-responsible development. Let you have a better idea what this development is going to look like. This is what it will look like in our neighborhood. And there's no way that this would have limited environmental impact on the neighborhood. Our neighborhood's infrastructure was built in 1920s, and it wasn't created with this much development in mind. When we first got our letter of determination from the city about this development back last summer, this is a map of the developments that were currently being developed or being proposed for development. This includes buildings of 96 units, 124 units. There's 4 units on this block. There's 4 buildings on this block alone. And since then, this number is only increased exponentially. Vote against. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Adam. It's my husband. Just building on what Jeff is saying, given the cumulative impact, we really have an issue with that and are speaking up for the whole neighborhood. We had 45 neighbors come to the first appeal many of which couldn't come today because of the short notice for the hearing. But essentially, we've had already 3 water main breaks on this street alone, given the development, since the other development has started, 4 buildings on this block. This is not adjacent to Pico or Fairfax. This building is not being built on a major thoroughfare. It's being built on a neighborhood street that is small and 1920s and cannot support this sort of development. We have been trying to reach a compromise with the developer, and we actually originally wanted to stick to the 33 feet that the queue condition allows, and we have increasingly given to the developer and are at 5 stories now and have tried to compromise every step of the way. But our assessment of this is that it's profit over neighbors.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lawrence Brayman. I also live right behind the proposed development, and I just want to support and add to what our council and what my neighbors have said regarding the cumulative effect. And I find it just shocking that the report has found that with all the development that is currently going on in the neighborhood, that noise is not being impacted. We've been living with high decibel noise from these construction projects, not to mention this one that hasn't even started yet, for years now. Jackhammers, saws, drilling over the safe level of noise to say that there needs to be no special abatement or that there is not a cumulative effect. When we are increasing from single-family homes to hundreds of units up and down Orange Grove, just to say there's no impact on traffic or the electrical grid or, again, noise, I think is not realistic. And I would ask you to please support our findings, our side. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other speakers that we've called, did I call you? Anthony Fox, yes, I did call you. Come on up.
I live about a couple hundred feet from the proposed project, and I hear a lot about this JJJ bill that passed. It kind of frankly comes off as a bait and switch. I mean, I voted for it. I think everybody, that's even here complaining about the project voted, but we obviously didn't know what it really was going to be. So I think you have to kind of take that perspective and realize that this project is one of the early projects that taps into, this whole new kind of zoning approach. And it seems pretty clear that if you put a 28-unit building in a primarily R1 neighborhood, that it's not going to work, and it has to be, in a sense, viewed as kind of a test project and allow the dialogue to continue and allow neighbors to have, active input in this, and listen and go back and forth until we find a way to make these projects work. I mean, again, I go back to this project replaces, what was essentially 2 R1 lots.
Thank you. Thank you. That's your
okay.
time. That's it. All right. If there are no other speakers that we've called, I'll ask a representative from Council District 10 to come forward.
Good afternoon, members of the Plum Committee. My name is Jordan Baruki. I'm here from Council President Herb Lesson's office. We'd like to thank the committee for taking the time to hear our case this afternoon, as well as thank the residents who made the trip over to City Hall. The project was filed as an admin case back in August of 2018, which required no initial public hearing. There was an appeal filed by an adjacent neighbor, which took the case to our citywide planning commission in October of 2018. The months leading to the October commission hearing, our office, along with Pico Neighborhood Council President Brad Kane, served as mediators between the applicant's team and concerned residents. We tried addressing privacy and height concerns, to which the developer was amenable to providing a little more landscaping, mature trees along the property lines to provide more shading and privacy for the neighbors. The developer also agreed to place planters on the balconies to help further address privacy concerns. However, we were not able to come to a consensus on the overall height of 5 stories. The community, this stretch of Orange Grove and I think the blocks north and south of here are somewhat accustomed to 4-story buildings in this area, because we have had some density bonus cases in the past, and as some of you may know, state density bonus will allow for an additional level or additional 11 feet of height. In this case, since the TOC is kind of a new animal, it allots for an additional 22 feet or 2 stories in this specific tier. This is a tier 3 TOC. So just given that the community is somewhat used to already a one-story incentive, this is kind of the first of its kind asking for 2 stories. I believe sometime after the October CPC decision was made, there was some litigation filed, some litigation was filed with the project, and all negotiations and conversations between parties came to a halt. We understand that there was recently some discussion between the parties to reach a global settlement, and as recently as a few moments ago, we really tried to hash it out, but unfortunately no resolution came to fruition. And again, one thing I like to highlight, and I think it was mentioned by staff and some of the members here, I mean, we're here today because of Measure JJJ. It was a mandate to the city to create some type of affordable housing or TOC guideline. And it was approved 64%. And again, it's to help address our housing and affordable housing crisis. We do acknowledge that this project is not deviating from any of the TOC guidelines or incentives. It's merely that this is the first project of its type on this block. It would be great if a developer was able to shave off a story, or if the neighbors were able to come to an agreement or a consensus on the 5th floor. But given where we are today, and given that residents still have concerns, our office is asking that you please consider granting the appeal. We'll stick around if there are any questions. I'll be in the back. If you have any questions, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll ask our planning department to come forward and address any issues as they see fit.
We just wanted to clarify the issue regarding the queue conditions of the ordinance. The project will be required to fully comply with the queue, with the exception of one provision, which would be the height, which is expressly permitted under the TOC guidelines as for the affordable units that are provided. The TOC guidelines provide that eligible housing developments shall base their incentives off the otherwise allowable development standards applicable to the property, which can include, among many things, the specific plan provisions, CPIO provisions, or in this particular case, queue conditions established by a zoning ordinance. For this particular project, the allowable height limitation applicable is 33 feet. As such, a 22-foot height increase would allow up to 55 feet. So if there were no queue conditions that were placed on this subject site, which would be an R3-1 zone, a 45-foot height limitation would be allowed. And if they were approved, the TOC, they would be given an additional 22 feet, so a 67-foot development would be proposed instead. So the project is proposing a maximum height of 53 feet 2 inches, which is consistent with the TOC height incentive and the queue condition. Thank you.
Mr. Blumenfeld.
A question for staff. This one's tricky. In the previous world before JJJ, we would have take a discretionary action, and it would have been a lot easier to make these changes. Myself included, had concerns about JJJ for this very reason, that it would remove council's discretion. And that was, a lot of us talked about that quite a bit, but it did pass. And my question to you is, what do we really have to decide as a council? Where's, how much of this is a compliance issue and how much of it is a discretionary issue in your mind, in terms of what under the JJJ, what do we, what are our options here?
Terry Kaufman, Messia City Attorney's Office, just before planning speaks. So we're only here on a CEQA appeal, so that a lot of the comments that were made relate to the underlying project. And right now you are looking at class 32, which is the infill. And you're also looking at the exceptions to that, which planning has already gone forward. Those are substantial evidence standards, and that's the cumulative, the unusual circumstances. There's no scenic highway, no hazardous waste site, no historic resources. So that's really what you're focused on.
We're affirming that compliance issue. It's very different than a lot of the cases where we get to talk about those discretionary items.
Yes.
That you mentioned.
Right, and even under class 32, for the infill, it doesn't state that the project has to be consistent with every general plan, designation, or policy. It's all applicable designations or policies. And so the council has the authority to decide which ones are significant and would apply here. So, I mean, you heard the planning department's comments and on all of that. And
I think she said that clearly. The only item before you is the CEQA appeal. And so it's not necessarily the TOC land use action, it's the CEQA compliance.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Blumenfeld, Mr. Cedillo, Price? All right. No. Thanks for asking, though. I believe, members, that we have to deny this appeal and sustain the West LA's APC determination in approving the categorical exemption and related CEQA findings as the environmental clearance for the interior and the exterior. I'm reading the wrong conditions. I'm reading the wrong conditions. All right. Do-over. Will deny the appeal and thereby sustain the Planning Commission's determination in improving the categorical exemption, Class 32 exemption for Tier 3 transit-oriented communities incentives for the project located at 1546 through 1550 Orange Grove Avenue. You have a second? Second it. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. We'll send this recommendation on to council. Mr. Mejia, can you confirm that this concludes our business for today's meeting?
Yes, Councilman.
Excellent. We're adjourned.